In the morning when I rise, give me Jesus.
Good morning. Well, the last couple of days we've been seeing that when you interact with Jesus, once you see him, you can't be casual about it. You cannot be indifferent when Jesus is in the midst, because either you will embrace him, receive the love of God, and you will never be the same again, or you will resist him, reject him, because if you embrace him, oh, you'll come alive and you'll never be the same. And so, if you want to hold on to your old self, if you want to hold on to your old life, if you want to hold on to the old way of doing things, then you reject Jesus. And most people do. And so they don't know it, but they're under the power of the evil one. This whole world is, because most people reject God, and in doing so, they embrace the devil. Well, we saw yesterday that they're doing that. There's a guy, a silversmith, and he's making idols to Artemis, a goddess, and they weren't about to give up their livelihood. They don't realize that Jesus is their provision if they will just trust him. You believe that, so hallelujah. God bless you who trust God like that. But today we're going to see when you chase false gods, there's confusion. And God's not a God of confusion. We're in Acts chapter 19. I'm going to read verses 28 through 34. Here's what they say. When they heard this and were filled with rage, they began crying out, saying, "Great is Artemis of Ephesus." They said, "We're going to put a silver image of Artemis on our mantle, because great is Artemis of Ephesus." The city was filled with the confusion, and they rushed with one accord into the theater, dragging along Gaius and Aristarchus, Paul's traveling companions from Macedonia. And when Paul wanted to go into assembly, the disciples would not let him. Paul wanted to come bring peace, and they wouldn't let him do that. Also, some of the Asiarchs who were friends of Paul sent to him and repeatedly urged him not to venture into the theater. There is bad stuff happening in there. So then, some were shouting one thing and some others were shouting another thing, because it's absolute chaos when the devil's involved. For the assembly was in confusion, and the majority did not know for what reason they had come together. They didn't even know why they were there, and yet they were yelling, they were rioting, they were rejecting the love of God. Some of the crowds concluded it was Alexander, since the Jews had put him forward. And having motioned with his hand, Alexander was intending to make a defense to the assembly. But when they recognized that he was a Jew, a single outcry arose from them all, who they shouted for about 2 hours, "Great is Artemis of Ephesus." They weren't about to let anything contrary to their false god, that was no God at all to any of them. Well, what we see here is just turmoil. What we see here is what the enemy brings. But let me show you God. In 1 Corinthians chapter 14, look at verse 33. God is not a God of confusion. Remember, we read twice there was confusion in that place. God is not a God of confusion, but of peace, as in all the churches of the saints. God is a God of peace, and we're going to see that tomorrow. God bless you, who rejects the confusion of the devil and embraces, walks in the love of God, that is the peace that's ours as we walk with him. I'll see you tomorrow.
Give me Jesus. Give me Jesus.